I just wanted to say before we start this video, shout out to all you guys in the kingdom, my people at the Dragon's Den, for spreading the word about the DPP SU video, my latest video, the lowest usage based tier. It's been doing numbers that I wasn't expecting for a meta game that, sub 20 people play. But yeah, I want to thank you guys for the support on that one. We are back in this business, guys. Uploads are coming. Don't worry about it. But yeah, let's go on to today's topic of this video. Alright guys, so today we're going to be going over this monotype thread in the monotype forums on Smogon forums, and yeah, this came out August 31st, so it has been like 2 weeks since it started, but it's generally just the end of the Pokemon Home metagame, seeing how DLC is coming out tomorrow, and frankly it's going to be a really good thing that DLC is coming out tomorrow. I really want to try some of the new mons in monotype or any other metagame that I play that they're legal, of course. But yeah, this is going to basically just be going over what people have been discussing in this in terms of how monotype was handled like up to this point in the generation, plus also my opinions at the end of that. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, please leave a like down below and subscribe to the channel. Join the kingdom today. I'm going to see if we can manage to get 300 subscribers by the end of the year. I know my upload consistency has not been the best, and I'm going to try to improve that, but I've just been so busy these last few months, of course. But yeah, so Maroon here just talking about how the monotype council would like to give an opportunity for everyone to express their thoughts on the metagame. I'll go through every post because it's still only like 1 page long, so it won't really take too long, I would say. But yeah, that's what we're generally going to be doing today. So yeah, first post here from Neko. Shout out to Neko, of course. And yeah, first point that Neko has to say is Builder's strain to check Chien Pao, Fluttermane, and King Gambit was too great if you weren't in the top types. And even then, even the top types have problems with certain sets meant to target them. Banded Power for flying, E-Bolt Fluttermane for water and flying, Low Kick King Gambit for steel, SD Power being uncheckable in the Dark Mirror without something like Scarf Gren or Chopple Gambit. This sort of led into a warped metagame where it was hard to pick and choose how badly we wanted to not lose against a certain threat, e.g. running Moltres meant the Swiss Swim matchup became harder since Moltres was only relevant to Powell's Steel when you have bulk up Landorus for Steel 2. Running Spadef Pex for Fluttermane, Surf Quavel for Sableye. It wasn't all bad, but honestly Power Gambit getting suspected would have helped a lot. Not gonna lie, I didn't enjoy the home meta game that much due to its restrictiveness, but it is what it is. So in terms of that first point here from Neko, yeah, it is generally going to be this video is generally going to be along the lines of perhaps we should have suspect tested Fluttermane and Chien Pao, specifically Chien Pao, maybe King Gambit on the side. But in terms of that, I was gonna say my opinion at the end, but like what else would I be talking about for the next how many minutes if I didn't say my own thoughts on this stuff? But yeah, Chien Pao I do believe should have been suspected. I think the Mon's power level is frankly really strong for this tier, and like there isn't that much defensive counterplay to it. Fluttermane on the other hand, I feel like its opinion has changed over time. The more people have played this meta game, and like, you know, especially at the tournament level or even high ladder, they realize that Fluttermane kinda is just still a hard Pokemon to wall, especially when people are running E-Belt like Neko mentioned, or you know, when you're running different sets from the norm, because everyone just thinks the best Fluttermane set in monotype is Choice Specs, which they're not necessarily wrong, but obviously Fluttermane can run Boots because Fairy has no removal, or running Expert Belt to, you know, swap around moves and, you know, play around the water matchup, because all you need for water is like, you know, T-Bolt, get your energy ball out, and you know, water has a very tough time. Same thing with Banded Chien Pao. Like Banded Chien Pao isn't like a set that was seen too often because Dark had no removal either. So, you know, Chien Pao just taking 25 from rocks, you know, and you just get up layers, especially in the mirror. Like if you had the Boots Pao in the mirror and you're running Band, then you pretty much just lost that game because your Chien Pao is dead in like 2 switch-ins. So, you know, those things like that. And yeah, but Ban Power basically has like no switch-ins in this tier. Like Dondozo's getting to it killed if it's not Fizz Death. So, you know, things like that. And the warp meta game is true because, you know, at the highest level there's only like, you know, 4 or 5 types: Dark, Fairy, you know, Flying, Steel, water. Even the water slightly fell off in my opinion, but you know, the top types are always the top types, and like these Pokemon generally the main causes of that, of course. Second statement, this made me feel like Monotype is way more matchup-y than ever, and as sometimes it's out of your hands to even try to win a poor matchup if the opposing player was at least decent in the game. This might be due to lack of options, but there's only so many slots to try and dedicate to beat those 3 threats on top of the top types, and obviously the top types, you know, Fairy, Dark, Flying, Fighting, Steel. I don't know, like matchup-y than ever. Like I feel like the level of matchup has always relatively stayed the same. You know, at least if we compare it to the prior generation in Generation 8. But Generation 8 has way more options than we do now. But to be fair, DLC is gonna, you know, fix this issue of lack of options especially for a lot of types. You know, Ice is getting its get back. That's all I'm gonna say. I won't really spoil unless like you guys know about leaks, but Ice is getting its get back. That's what I'm gonna say. Survey left a bad taste for me due to the issue of it being too close to Monotype Premier League. I wish if you had the survey it was way before. The circumstances of DLC were unfortunate, so it's understandable why sus wouldn't be worse for our now. But yeah, that's also another big one. We held a survey and the survey meant nothing in the long run of things. So a lot of people in this thread are talking about how there was no point of doing the survey. Either don't do the survey or do it way before our tournament starts, so there'll actually be some sort of tiering action. With this sort of mindset, if we did have a survey before MPL started, which I don't remember when MPL started, June. I really don't remember when it started, but if we had one around that time, surely we might have seen some tiering action, maybe another suspect. Because realistically, we only had one suspect throughout this like almost 9-month period of the generation, and like a lot of people do just like, you know, thinking emoji basically. They're just like, huh? How have we only had one suspect? We have issues in this tier, whether it was pre-home or post-home, and yeah, I can understand the dissatisfaction with that. I also did the survey. You know, I also counted as one of the qualified, you know, player base of the survey because I was in World Cup or Monotype. But you know, yeah, no tiering action. Yeah, it was a bit a slap in the face to the, you know, community, but what can we do? DLC's coming, so hopefully we'll see some change sooner or later. And the last point on Neko, I think Chi's a Pokemon that might deserve a second chance in the meta game due to its unfortunate speed tier. However, its ability to just dismantle bulk isn't something to be understated. Being able to rip apart anything, something that Power or Flutter Mane needs to have coverage for instance, whilst Kingambit has speed issues, is worrisome. Plus is another dark type. I guess that last sentence is just like a little joke thing, because again, like Monotype tiering philosophy, like if it makes dark stronger, is irrelevant of like the type individually, is always, you know, the metagame at the wider scope. But obviously I think Neko knows that. So yeah, Chi-Yu, let's worry about Chi-Yu later, guys. I'm not gonna lie. I think someone else mentions Chi-Yu potentially, but like, let the metagame settle first, guys. Come on. Like, after we discover what's actually good in DLC 1, maybe Chi-Yu might be suspect test worthy. But surely if there were to be a Chi-Yu resuspect, something like Chien-powered suspect has to come before that. Maybe Kingambit as well. But yeah, nice thoughts from Neko here. Some things that, you know, basically set off this video in terms of the points regarding the surveys, Chien-Pow, Flutter Mane, Kingambit, you know, those guys, and, you know, potentially the restrictedness of this metagame, or, you know, like the lack of variety essentially. But yeah, next we have Boom P611. Honestly, just needed to suspect Chien-Pow Kingambit. There should never be a case where a Mon has to make every team have to build around dealing with a single Mon, especially Kingambit, where even if you played well, you can just get reverse swept by it. For a metagame, I enjoyed the fact that Flying and Ground were top types and not Water for a change. Well, you know, 3 lines, you don't always need to have, you know, a whole paragraph saying your dissatisfaction. But yeah, they're enjoying that Flying and Ground were good types. Was Ground a top type? I mean, it depends on how far your scope of top type goes, because obviously Neko here mentioned flying dark, flying fighting steel. Obviously ground wasn't included, but if there were to be any type after those 5-6 that I just mentioned, it's probably like ground or water, to be honest. So fair enough, but yeah, good point there. Giyu here says, I was really rooting for Chien-Pao suspect tests sometimes before the DLCs, but obviously that's not going to happen, although I truly believe that one will be necessary after the DLC release. And once you saw that FM got attention in Tyrion, but Chien-Pao didn't, especially since I've seen a lot more disdain for Chien-Pao. At this point, I'll be repeating a lot of what Neko said, as I agree with their post. And also about Chi-Yu, I'm also not sure about Chi-Yu, but I do want to point out that King Gambit would have been a lot tamer without a Snow Leopard doped up on swords and infinite entry hazards, claiming 3 to 4 lives on every team, before finally dying to cope checks like Choice Scarf, Low Kick, Walking Wake, and Choppleberry King Gambit. I'm not gonna lie, I don't think Walking Wake Oko's Chien-Pao from full HP with Flamethrower, but I might have to double check those calcs. Either way, yeah, another user here in the community that actually plays the tier to a decent degree, saying a Chien-Pao suspect needed to happen. I'm also of the opinion that a Chien-Pao suspect should have happened. I won't explain too much my reason. I'm pretty sure here a lot of people do my job for me, and generally the points that they make logically make sense to me, so that's how I'm going to operate, next up we got Pengai Extra. I don't know how to say your name, apologies there, but as a relative newbie to competitive Pokemon, I only dabbled in some stuff before jumping headfirst into Monotype in December, and I've stuck around since. I mostly enjoyed the home metagame for what it was, despite some grievances with type matchups. Granted, with how samey some types have felt, seeing the same exact 6 to 8 mons on a good majority of types has felt stale, and I will enjoy the new life given by the DLCs. For the server, I would believe overall was a good thing, as it gave a very solid look into how people thought the meta was at the time, but the fact that it took over a month to see the results, along with the lack of resulting action that came with it due to MPL, wasn't in my eyes and made it seem less valuable overall than what it could have been. The resulting lack of action, especially with how many votes Chien-Pao got, that where in the 4-5 range felt wrong, and I believe it should have gotten a suspect from the survey. And with me being the 4th person to bring it up here, I think that speaks some volume of it. So yeah, again, Chien-Pao should have been suspected, but MPL was around the corner. But I don't know, a lot of people don't really agree with like the tournament stuff. Like, even though we have our biggest tournament of the year happening, I guess a suspect test would be slightly inconvenient, but at the same time, like, at least keep it in mind for when DLC comes out. That's all I really have to say regarding Chien-Pao. Other problematic mons that should have been looked at really come down to just King Gambit for me for major standouts. For how good both Dark and Steel are right now, the sheer power Gambit brings to both of those types make it a constant problem to play against, and always forced having a Gambit count on the team, unless I wanted to see a nice reverse sweep due to his raw power. Sure, there's also FM that should have gotten some action, but with the additions home brought, it felt far less oppressive, but it still is a monster. Other than that, I don't believe there's anything that's actually problematic. Sure, there's my personal problem with Landorus, but I play Poison, so major bias there. Also, nothing really stands out to me for farm bands outside of Chi-Yu. But yeah, I don't know, guys. Chi-Yu still like, it's still just like, even back when Chien-Pao and Chi-Yu were on the same team, the majority of the player base still just thought Chi-Yu was harder, because obviously there's less special walls than physical walls in Pokemon, so Chi-Yu was obviously just a monster. Also had Fire Sun, so even then the few checks just dropped as well. So yeah. Yeah, so here we have Pikachu here mentioning, I have a few problems with how any tiering action was done and to the extent they result in metagame. Everything done in this tier appears to be a series of half-hearted half measures instead of strong, genuine effort to improve the tier. Not blaming anyone in particular, as life is busy, I get it, and I get that people point hours into the tier out of pure passion, but this is just an honest outside high-level observation. The sample teams were paused this week. Why bother making sample teams if we're going to have 1/2 updates post-home and leaving a state where half the available types don't even have a team available? The Monotype VR had one meaningful update and has failed to respond to most of the nominations made in this thread. I've heard that it's not going to be updated until post-home. Again, if we're going to leave the project in our sorry half-done state like this, why bother having it up at all? I'd like to echo the post above about their lack of a Chiempao suspect as well. Not sure why Fluttermane got Tyrion action while Chiempao did not. Personally don't believe Gambit is broken, but enough people are calling for Tyrion action that it should be suspected. To me, it feels like the only reason these suspects didn't happen is because people didn't want to put in the effort to run another suspect. Again, I don't know about that one still, but I read this post before where I was just like, I don't think it has nothing to do with not doing a suspect test. Maybe there was some hesitancy, I don't know. I'm not counter, am I? Another issue I have is that flying is most used type with above a 66% win rate. People are trying to prep for it as is the most used type, and it's still winning more than 2/3 of the game. And we're just dismissing this as fine. Something definitely feels wrong here. Not sure what the right solution is, but there definitely should be a discussion. And the fact that this hasn't been brought up is shocking. Well, I don't know, like flying having the highest win rate, like what can you really do about that? It's not like flying has broken mons on it. It's just that, you know, the combination of, you know, all of the mons that it has on the type just makes it the strongest type. Like, oh, what, are we gonna ban freaking Corviknight or something? Like, I don't know what you want there to be done about flying, but you know, a bit more explanation that would have been nice though. I'll be real. Scarfire here, hard to add more without it feeling like an echo of other posts, but at this point it really did feel like a whole lot of nothing was done so far this gen. Terror was handled strangely. Week 2 Fluttermane suspect, no suspects after jeez, my voice was going. No suspects after World Cup of Pokemon, nothing going into MPL, and I'm hoping the survey during it would have caused a suspect during or right as MPL ended. Nothing. Pre-home unaddressed issues till the end are still the problems now. Flutterpow, Gambit, unfortunately they're still going into DLC 1, which is kind of laughable. Also, the aforementioned survey itself was a big gripe. What an absolute pointless thing. Don't bother with those if their impact is absolute zero. If the results of the survey can't come to fruition because there's an ongoing tour, then don't fucking do one. Just drop one whenever a tour ends. Post MPL and MLT survey would have and still can be great. Yeah, but like mentioned in previous post, slowness with VR, sample teams and other resources is just going to serve as a turn-off to new players. I can't even say the gen thus far has been handled poorly. It's just not been handled at all. We have a bunch of new folks heading the future of the tier, so hopefully there's some significant change throughout DLC 1. We will see. But yeah, let me just keep going through some of these posts. Yeah, I think Mushamu, Neko posted something that Mushamu said here. Chi as a Pokemon should be revisited. Fluttermane revisited as well. Shedtail is dumb. And yeah, Shedtail, yeah, no one's actually mentioned Shedtail at all in this thread, which yeah, it's definitely something to consider. Probably something not good on normal because normal's ass. Dragon, Cyclizar, and Steel, all 4 of them are probably like the biggest contributors to Shedtail being potentially too strong, because like you can just Shedtail on Steel, bring in like King Gambit or some other, you know, threat like Goldengo, and yeah, it's kind of difficult, but yeah, just keeping that in mind. Haven's here mentioning you know, another person that wants to have action on Chiempao. Well, yeah, long-term health of the metagame suffers the longer it sticks around. Here's a list of possible viable competitive Pokemon returning in the DLC. Things like, you know, I'll just say they mentioned Poliwrath and Conkeldurr. You know, I don't know how often Conkeldurr switch, like these guys aren't even solid switchings, because Chiempao will just start running Psychic Fangs and 2-hit KO them anyways. So, but at least Conkeldurr can threaten out Chiempao with you know, Mach Punch, but Poliwrath doesn't get priority in Mach Punch, so we'll see how that goes. Havens also mentions that King Gambit also isn't broken. I feel like if anyone was to say any Pokemon's the least broken right now out of the ones that people are saying are broken, King Gambit is probably at the bottom, but it's still, even Fluttermane. There's definitely been more people complaining about King Gambit these days than Fluttermane, in my opinion. Dead by Daylight here. I'm in the minority, probably not supporting a Chiempao quick ban. Warps the metagame, so he's defending Chiempao here, or they're defending, I won't mispronounce someone. Chiempao has checks on a lot of types it threatens. You know, Corviknight walls it, non-ban set, same with Moltres. Prediction is needed if you're choiced. Even, I mean, choice is least common, and Chiempao still messes up Dragon pretty hard, so I don't know how strong this point is, to be fair. You just Icicle Crash into Sacred Sword the Goodra, Ice Shard the Dragonite, you know, like, I think Chiempao still has an advantage versus Dragon, whether it's choiced or not choiced. It's just more of if you can get up Hazard with Garchomp, which isn't too hard on against Dark, but you know. But yeah, you know, all these arguments versus Chen Pao. Wyvern King here, more also just saying how he's not the biggest fan of how suspect discussions go in Monotype forums either. I mean the impression I got more than anything is that people are really discouraged to use forums, and especially by the time server results were out with no suspect, people are just kind of tired. I'm also not the biggest fan of using MPL as a great indicator for suspect than what people are asking for. Kind of seemed like pulling strats from there was a big way to cut off Spectra power discussion with Dark's low win rate and go slow usage. I'm fairly confident that if I go back to every page in forum, I'll see multiple discussion or people bringing up POW on just about every page, or at least like suspect, Zam, Spec, Gambit, and then POW, or something like that. As I said earlier, I'm on the fence about POW. I can probs attribute some of the discussion lethargy to the meta being kind of stale and matchup fishy, but I can 100% understand it. The meta was incredibly restrictive, and due to incomplete decks, we pretty much crossed off lower tier types from discussion, so it ended up revolving around interactions between top types. Wyvern King is completely correct. Lack of mons, some types don't exist, some types shouldn't exist because they're just bad lack options. So, you know, centralization with the top types, and in that point, yeah, it would turn matchup fishy, because I even remember now in Monotype full seasonal, I dropped out because I didn't have time because of work. But yeah, I just had the tournament folder on Showdown with just the top types, and I was just like, time to load this one, hopefully they bring that one. That was my interaction in the latest tournament I played for SV Monotype. So yeah. And then we have the Architect here. I think they've played in MPL or some other Monotype tournaments as of late. But yeah, 50-50 on Chen Pao. Bro's just like, why are we still talking about Fluttermane? You know, Spectre isn't bad because it's only stuck on Ghost, and they're happy to see Zamazenta's fell off. Yeah, I don't think Zamazenta is overbearing. It's definitely a really good mod, and fighting has become even better because it's on the type. But yeah, and yeah, King Gambit, the 50-50 mon. But yeah, they also say they're anti-banning unless it's something obviously broken like Urshifu, you know, Single Strike, and Megina. Yeah, Megina was brain dead. Like, you could just load it on any Steel or Fairy team and they'll just win anyway. They say they do like SV so far. I mean, I do also like the SV metagame. It is fun. Even pre-home and post-home, I've liked SV Monotype, hence why I'm still playing it. Even though I have more of a preference towards Natdex Monotype, I still like, you know, SV. And then we have Chaitanya here. I don't actually said your name out loud, so if I am saying it wrong, apologies. But yeah, Chait saying here, lastly, I do think some of the form of modified terrestrialization should be looked at. Oh yeah, I even forgot Architect mentioned that we should try and bring Terra back somehow. But yeah, Terra just isn't a thing that can really work in Monotype in the long run. It's basically like pre, you know, Mega Ban in Aurus Monotype, where you could run Mega Gyarados, you know, Dark, you know, or Zardex flying. It's just kind of breaking the point of Monotype by having a one that just doesn't have that typing on your team. So that's why we had same type Terra in the first place. But again, everything having an adaptability boost, you know, that's really gonna help Crawdon, isn't it, when it comes back in DLC 1? Just adaptability Terra Dark knockoff. Like, someone tell me we're switching into that, please. But yeah. This thread is pretty pointless to me, but using win rate to point out Flying's dominance while crying out for a Chen Pao suspect, ignoring Dark at a 37% win rate is pretty funny to me. The effort to run a suspect is exceedingly minimal. Promise you this was not a reason the Dark type Pokemon wasn't suspected. So some sort of conspiracy response there from Che is to be expected from them, to be fair, in terms of these sort of responses. But yeah, on Friday, the latest post here, Dugza, and then I think Architect, I mean Wyvern King and Roxy respond afterwards. But yeah, I'll just I've read what Wyvern King and Roxy said afterwards, but yeah, this is basically the last post I'll be going over in this thread. So this is what Dugza had to say on Friday. Thanks for sharing the thoughts, because Dugza is now the tier leader of Monotype now. Floss, Maroon, and Dugza themselves have been trying to make sure the whole subforum is more organized and resources are more up to date. I do agree with the sample teams. Like, I don't even think Grass or Ghost have sample teams. Fair enough, they're below average types at the moment, but yeah. Every type needs to have a sample team, even Rock. My team was the Rock sample team, you know, so we have to make sure that's done, you know. Resources, point here. The Monotype sample teams were paused this week. Why bother making the sample teams thread? I'll address the concerns about the resources first. The issue with samples is completely overstated. While the samples project has been relatively slow paced as a whole, the home meta is barely 3 months old and we have teams for 14 out of 18 types. So I don't see how we don't have teams for half the available types. I do agree to the extent that the thread should have been only paused after doing one last slate of additions, but overall the teams available are more than sufficient for new players to delve into their tier. Anyways, already spoke to the samples team, Style, Swiftix, and Neko, and moving forward after the DLC release, sample updates will be done more periodically. Expect updates every month or so. As for the VR, I won't even try to defend this. Our VR has had a lot of room to improve since the latter part of last gen. That said, Roxy will be leading the VR project following DLC and already has plans to put more periodic updates. Basic idea is to have major updates following DLCs, major team tours, MPL, MWP, MWC. Or every 3 to 4 months. Other than that, there will be minor updates every month or so to warrant for minor changes and metagame trends outside of team tours. Other than that, all gens resources, SSSM, Black, White were all updated recently as well. So big thank you to Neko and Crossheart for making sure they're all done. Tiering concerns. Personally speaking, I'm not a huge fan of how we handled the survey situation either, and have a lot of qualms about the whole situation. I think something should have been suspected based on the survey results. The survey results not being posted in a timely manner was an awful oversight from our end as well. Anyways, in the future, if we conduct any surveys, then expect the results to be posted shortly after the survey deadline. This goes without saying, but having a survey does not warrant that any tiering action will be taken. We've already made some changes as to how counter operates, so expect things to go more smoothly moving forward. Yeah, in terms of that, I remember the survey finished and then we were waiting a whole month for the results. I was just like, why are we waiting so long for these surveys? Like, it's actually crazy. Like, I think I was like, where's the survey results? Like, why did it take so long to come out? Like, that's also something I have to you know, mention as well personally. There was nothing strange about how Terra was handled. The ban post outlines really well why Terra has no place in Monotype, but none of the compromises being suggested in OU. Terra tiering can be applied in Monotype to keep a Terra legal. Banning Terra Blast is pointless since you have Stab anyway and only really affects very niche examples like physical Dragapult sets and revealing Terra types on previews. Also again, pointless since Terra and Monotype would always be restricted to the type clause anyway. Like Chait mentioned in his post, if anyone has a solution to keep Terra legal in a somewhat balanced way, then we are open to listening, but until then, Terra has no place in Monotype and there was nothing wrong with how we handled it. In a similar vein, where I can understand complaints about no tiering being done on Gambit, Power, or Spectra, it's extremely laughable that Flutter Mane is brought up as a problematic Pokemon that we didn't handle in a suitable way when there was remotely no support to warrant any tiering action taken on it post-home. And the suspect that we did have pre-home, it barely got any votes to be banned, and that was when it actually had considerable support for a suspect test. And then Dugza responding to what Pikachu said, banning Pokemon just to nerf a type when the Pokemon themselves are not remotely broken is unheard of, and I'm baffled someone who's been around in the community for as long as you made this post. You failed to point out what exactly is broken and massively exaggerate that is shocking when it really isn't. Yeah, I mean, that was also my opinion as well. Like, you want to nerf Flying's win rate, how exactly are you going to do that? Without either banning something on a type that, you know, Flying struggles against, or banning a mon on Flying itself where no, the mons are broken, you know. So there's that. Other than that, we've also taken steps to make sure our OMs more organized. The MWP ends up having OMs and we want the OMs to be yeah, this is mainly just about you know, our OMs community in terms of Monotype as well. SV tiering, that's more for the metagame at large. We'll be voting on what currently banned Pokemon, if any, that will be free with the DLC release. Voting does not not guaranteed that any Pokemon will be freed if none of them meet the required vote threshold. The box legends will be banned almost soon after the DLC drops, and then our first voting slate for quick bans will be within the first week after DLC. And yeah, so Doug's a pretty good response from them in terms of you know, some transparency of what's going to happen with the future Gen 9 Monotype. But yeah, that will be it for today's video. Let me know down below what your thoughts on Gen 9 Monotype is at the moment. Overall, I enjoyed the home metagame. It's a bit samey. I did try and innovate a little bit, you know, try and have some fun here and there, but generally I think I'll give competitiveness like 7.5 out of 10, and then like enjoyment roughly like a 7. Like, I still enjoy playing this metagame, even though I'm a bit more biased towards that Dex Monotype at the moment. But yeah, I want to thank you guys for watching this one. Subscribe to the Kingdom and join the Kingdom, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.